Right, so here are the second part of the 8.3 video notes. The first part was dealing with the domain and range. This part here is dealing now with finding inverses of function. All right, so finding the inverse of the function. Now, finding the inverse of the function, the idea is actually fairly simple. You're basically you have a function. They usually written out as f of x equals x squared plus 5. You write that out as, well, place that f of x with a y equals x squared plus 5. So you basically write it out like y equals x squared plus 5. And the whole idea with inverses is you essentially just swap places with the x's and the y's. The x's and y's are going to swap places, and you're going to then solve that equation for y. All right, so again, that's kind of the steps over here. So you write f of x as y, switch the x's and y's, solve for y. This last step, not that important, then replace with f of negative 1 x of x. It's mostly just the solving here. So let's go ahead and do this. So I already wrote the y here. So y equals x squared plus 5. What I'm going to do is I'm going to switch these out right here. So I'm going to switch those. All right. Now, so this y out here becomes an x. Now, this exponent here doesn't change. So the only thing that changes is the position. So this y is going to go in this position with that squared there. So it's going to stay. So that exponent is going to stay, well, there, right with that x with that y there, and then the plus 5 doesn't change. Okay, and then from there, what we're going to do is, well, let's just go ahead and solve for y. And then, standard algebra rules here. We want to get y all by itself. How do I do that? Well, I move this 5 over by subtracting it. X minus 5 equals y squared. And now I got a y squared equals x minus 5. How do I solve that? How do I finish that out? Well, anytime you have a square there, take the square root. That gets rid of that. Take the square root of x minus 5, all right? You're left with y is equal to the square root of x minus 5. You can't really change that at all. And the last thing, replace that y with f negative 1 of x, and you got your inverse function right there, x square root of x minus 5, okay? So again, biggest idea, writing as y's, switching the x's and y's, and then solving for y, all right? That's going to be the main theme of this video right here, okay? So find the inverse of this function here. I got f of x is equal to 1 over 4x plus 3 plus 5, okay? First thing I'm going to do, I'm going to replace this f of x with a y here. All right? So I got 1 over 4x plus 3 plus 5. These y's and x's are going to switch positions. So on the outside here, I'm going to write x is equal to 1 over 4y plus 3 plus 5, because again, I just swapped the positions out there, okay? Now let's solve for y, all right? Well, let's try and get this y all by itself. So I'm going to minus this 5 over. I get x minus 5 equals 1 over 4y plus 3. Now with this, okay? Now we have that y on the bottom of this fraction. I want to get it to the top of the fraction. So the way that I'm going to do that is I'm going to take this whole darn thing here, the 4y plus 3, and I'm going to multiply it to both sides. All right, we're going to multiply it to both sides here, okay? I'm going to write it out over here. So we got 4y plus 3 times x minus 5 equals, I cancel these out, so I'm left with equals 1, all right? Now, even though we have different variables, I got a y and I got an x here, we're still going to basically treat it, like the same, all right? We're going to treat it like multiplication, all right? Which again means I take this one and I distribute it out to here. I'm going to take this one, distribute it out to here, okay? If I multiply these out, 4y times x, well, that just gets me 4yx. Oh, no, not 4y minus x. So I get 4yx. 4y times negative 5 is negative 20y. 3x gets me plus 3x, and then, went forward, sorry. And then 3 times negative 5 is negative 15, and that's still equal to 1, okay? So if I look here, well, I can't really combine any like terms like you normally would with multiplication, so this is basically what I'm left with here, okay? Now, again, I'm still trying to solve for y. That's what I'm doing here. I'm still trying to get this y, solve for this y. So once I get to this step here, all right, where I've distributed everything out here, the next step is to move everything that is not a y over to the other side. So I'm going to take this 3x and this plus 15, because they don't have y's attached to them, I'm going to move them over to this side here. And if you get that, we're going to be left with 4xy, it's the same thing, just switch the letters around, minus 20y is equal to negative 3x plus 15 plus 1, that gets me plus 16, all right, because I'm going to just do 1 plus 15 there, okay? Now, once I get all the y's, all the y terms by themselves over here, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to just factor out a single y. And again, I just factor just like I factor out like a GCF. Now, if I factor the y out, well, I'm left with 4x minus 20 inside, all right, because I just take one y away from both terms, equals negative 3x plus 16. Now, the last thing to do, that I have this y out front here, all by itself, times 4x minus 20, is I'm going to divide the 4x minus 20 on both sides. And again, that just deletes out everything on this side. That leaves me with just the single y, and then that'll leave me with this equation over here. So the equation will be, and I'll write it up here, y equals negative 3x plus 16 over 4x minus 20, all right? And again, technically, if you want to add in that little f of negative 1 of x, you can do that, but it's not super duper necessary. So this is that right there. And that's that. So these fraction ones, if you have x on the bottom of the fraction, those are probably going to be the most amount of steps you do. Just remember to get the fraction by itself, multiply by the denominator on both sides, distribute out right here, get all the non-y terms away, and then factor a y out, and then divide, all right? And we'll go over, might have another one of those to work out as well. All right, so this is the last example in our notes here. So we're finding the inverse of this function here. So I got f of x is equal to the cube root of negative x minus 3. Well, let's set this up here. I'm going to replace this f of x with a y. Actually, I'm going to do it over here. Give myself a little bit more room. So I'm going to do it with a y here. Equals, and then the cube root of negative x minus 3 right there, okay? Now again, take the x's and y's and we switch them. I'm left with, going down here, x is equal to the cube root of negative y minus 3. Again, the negative out front stays the same. It's just the x and the y. And let's solve for y. So I got this y and this negative 3 underneath the square root, or the cube root sign, so I can't really do anything with them. So the way that so I basically have to get them out of the square of the cube root here. So the way that I'm going to do that is I'm going to cube both sides. And if I cube this side, I cube this side. So it's going to turn. So if I cube it, it gets rid of this. And I'm left with x cubed is equal to negative y minus 3. Because again, it literally cancels out the root around it. And I'm left with the negative y minus 3 inside. Then from there, we want to get y all by itself. I'm going to add 3 over. We're left with y is equal to, x, excuse me. Little brain fart there, sorry. So I'm left with x cubed plus 3 is equal to negative y. I can't leave it like a negative y, so I have to basically divide by a negative 1 on both sides. So that leaves me over here, and basically divide by negative 1. I'm just going to change all the signs here. So it turns into y equals x cubed here will turn into a negative x cubed, plus 3 will turn into a minus 3 here. So that is my inverse equation. And again, technically, if you need to write it, if you want to write it like this, you can do that as well. All right. All right. So I'm going to have one more example. I got enough time on the timer here, so I'm going to do one more example. This is actually number 16 in your notes. On your homework assignment, actually. So this is number 16, but I want to do another example of the fraction ones because I know this one kind of causes some people some problems here. So again, I want to find the inverse of this. All right, just like we've been doing. So again, what I'm going to do, take this f of x here, I'm going to rewrite it as a y. All right, so I have y is equal to negative 4x minus 1 minus 1. Again, once I get this far, we're going to switch out the x's and the y's. I'm going to be left with x equals -4 over y minus 1. And then the minus 1 stays the same there. All right, now what do I do with this is I'm going to take this plus 1 here, and I'm going to add it to both sides here, all right? That gives me with x plus 1 equals -4 y minus 1. I get the fraction all by itself here, okay? Now I have the y on the bottom of the fraction, so what that means is I have to basically take this y minus 1 and multiply by that on both sides. So I'm going to take both sides and multiply y minus 1. If we do it on this side, it's going to cancel out these y minus 1s. So basically what I'm left with, and I'll write this side, y minus 1 times x plus 1 equals, and then we're left with the -4 over here. Then what we do, we're going to take this y here, and we're going to take both these binomials, and we're going to distribute them out. Take them out right here. If I do y times x, well, that just leaves me with yx. If I do y times 1, that leaves me with 1y. -1 times x is -x. -1 times 1 is, well, -1 equals -4. Once I multiply this stuff out here, find all of the non-y terms, any term that doesn't have a y next to it, and get it over to the other side. This x doesn't, so I'm going to do plus x on both sides. This 1 doesn't, so I'm going to do plus 1 on both sides. That leaves me with, I'm going to write it up here now, we're going over here. I got yx plus y equals x. -4 plus 1 is -3. Once I get all the y's here all by themselves on this side, I'm going to take out a y. And if I factor out a y, I'm left with x plus 1 still equals x minus 3. And then the last step, or the last most important step, is we take this x plus 1 and we divide it on both sides. All right, because again, I'm trying to get, once I get this y kind of out front here, I'm just trying to get it by itself. Dividing it cancels it out, and I'm left with y is equal to x minus 3 over x plus 1. And again, if you want to put in the f minus 1 of x equals x minus 3 over x plus 1, you can do that as well. All right. All right, so these have been the 8.3 notes, finding inverses of functions. Thank you guys for following along, and we'll see you later.